Hello everyone, and welcome to Lab Manager's Tech Trends webinar series. My name is Trevor Henderson, Technology Editor for Lab Manager, and I'll be moderating today's discussion, which will focus on how an electronic lab notebook can benefit your lab. Today we have a panel consisting of 3 leading industry specialists who will discuss how changes in IT instrumentation affect how researchers and labs operate and interact with data. We like our webinars to be very interactive, so we encourage you to send us your questions at any point during the webinar, and the panelists will address these during the question and answer session following the presentations. To ask questions, simply type your query into the question box located at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We'll try to address as many of these questions as possible during the Q&A session. If we happen to run out of time, I will forward any unanswered questions to the panelists, and they can respond to you directly. Additional resources can be accessed through the resource widget located at the bottom of your screen. You may also move or resize any of the windows simply by grabbing them at the top or stretching them at the bottom right corner. You may also need to move or minimize some of the open windows now to see the live view. This webinar recording will be available early next week on Lab Manager's website. At the end of this webinar, we will share that link with you as well as the contact information for all of our panelists. With that, let me introduce our first speaker. Dr. Gloria Oliver joined Agilent Technologies in April of 2014 and is currently Product Manager of Agilent's OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook program. She's responsible for defining the product development roadmap of OpenLAB ELN. Gloria has over 10 years experience doing discovery research in multidisciplinary academic, startup, and government labs. Dr. Oliver holds a PhD in chemical and biomolecular engineering from Johns Hopkins University and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Brown University. Thank you for joining us today, Gloria.
Thank you, Trevor, for the warm introduction. I'm excited for the opportunity to participate in today's panel and highlight some of the key features of OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook, or ELN. But before I dig into the details of OpenLAB ELN, I'd like to briefly introduce Agilent Technologies. Agilent Technologies is the premier global provider of instrumentation, software, and services for chromatography, mass spec, spectroscopy, and genomics laboratories. We are a multi-billion-dollar company and an industry leader in both technology and customer satisfaction across numerous markets, including chemical and energy, pharmaceuticals and biotech, food, forensics and environment, and diagnostics and clinical. Agilent's OpenLAB software and informatics portfolio is divided into 4 key areas: data systems, professional services, electronic content management, and electronic lab notebook. Together, the OpenLAB portfolio provides a complete solution to increase productivity and efficiency within your lab. Our data systems drive and capture data off of Agilent as well as many industry-leading instruments, allowing you to get the most out of your lab's investment. Our electronic content management offers secure, centralized, and scalable content management that's compatible with a wide variety of instruments and software applications. And this tool facilitates regulatory compliance efforts and IP management. And lastly, our professional services organization consists of top-notch people who are there to help put your OpenLAB solution in place and optimize it for your lab's specific needs. The focus of today's webinar is OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook. OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook is a lot like a paper lab notebook, except with a lot more functionality layered on top of that notebook. It allows you to create a central hub for sharing information between lab manager and lab employees. This central hub can enable you to standardize protocols, share results, search results, track progress, and even prioritize and delegate experiments. A lot of electronic lab notebooks can promise you the power of search, or the ability to search your results and search through your notes at any time. So it's important to go beyond just the search functionality and really dig into the details of what each ELN has to offer. 3 important questions to consider when deciding whether to move towards an ELN are, does it facilitate easy communication and collaboration across teams? Does it help enable a compliant lab environment? And does it effortlessly import all of your data files? In other words, how easy is it going to be for you to migrate from a paper-based system over to an electronic system? And how easy will it be for the lab employees within your group to adopt this new electronic-based format? OpenLAB ELN makes it very easy to import files. All you have to do is just drag and drop your files onto the page. In addition to image files, you can drag and drop Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, PDF files, any file type that you wish. And you can also insert a link to a file to conserve space on the page. This makes OpenLAB ELN compatible with any type of file or data in your laboratory. You can also use OpenLAB ELN to create templates and forms to standardize workflows and avoid errors, like transcription errors or forgetting to enter the right data into the notebook. OpenLAB ELN also allows you to collaborate across teams and scientific disciplines. Users can share results and standard operating procedures with teammates in-house or across the globe in real time. As a lab manager, you can also delegate tasks to the appropriate lab or person within your organization, such as the analytical lab, formulations lab, assay development lab, and synthesis lab. This is a screenshot of what a person in the analyst lab might see after receiving a request for analysis from the author shown here. The analyst can see who generated the request or the experiment, and they can also see what type of analysis the author would like to have performed. As a lab manager, you can quickly and easily search the electronic lab notebook to view all of the pending analyses. By doing this, you now have a way to track experiment progress at a glance. OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook is one of the few ELNs that's flexible enough to meet the needs of a wide variety of disciplines, including chemists, biologists, and lab managers alike. And I really want to emphasize this ability to track experiment progress at a glance, because this is really one of the most powerful features of OpenLAB ELN, especially from a lab manager's point of view. One of our customers, Dr. Kelly Zaleski, Director of Product Development at Bioconvergence, refers to this as e-transparency. And she says that this information transparency, or access to information in real time, gives the company a strategic advantage. As Dr. Zaleski puts it, as the manager, I no longer have to ask analysts about the status of a client project. It's quick and easy to search the ELN to find out. I can instantly communicate this information to a client on the phone or use it to monitor performance of the lab. So this is a perfect example of how OpenLAB ELN enables you to increase productivity and efficiency within your group, and even gives you a competitive advantage in the marketplace when communicating with customers efficiently and increases the quality of your communication with customers. OpenLAB ELN also helps you enable a compliant lab environment. As the premier global provider of instruments, software, and services, Agilent has years of experience and a proven track record of performance when it comes to compliance. Agilent's OpenLAB software is designed with compliance in mind to keep auditing issues at bay, and we have a wide variety of audit preparedness built into OpenLAB ELN. Many of our customers tell us that Agilent's integrity and reputation as a premier provider gives them peace of mind and helps them pass their audits with ease. As a lab manager, OpenLAB ELN will enable you to access these audit preparedness tools and save countless hours of time and energy. When auditors ask questions, you can quickly search and pull up the answers in minutes by housing all of your data, protocols, and experiment history in one centralized and organized location, and no longer having this information distributed across dozens of paper notebooks. One of our customers, David Vollmer, who's a Senior Director of Quality Control at 4Life Research, sums it up best when he says, "The most advanced quality control labs in our industry." 4Life is at the forefront of quality and compliance in the dietary supplement industry, with offices in 23 countries, and they must comply with FDA regulatory requirements. To meet these requirements, 4Life has outfitted its quality control labs with OpenLAB ELN as part of their commitment to enabling a compliant lab environment. As David Vollmer puts it, OpenLAB enables us to fulfill our compliance requirements. From the moment we generate data, it's in a secure repository where if we make any changes, those changes are noted, validated, and signed off. So we have traceability throughout the whole process. In conclusion, you can speed up your lab cycle time by leveraging the power of OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook to create a central hub for sharing information between the lab manager and lab employees. This allows you to do things like standardize protocols, share and search through your results, track experiment progress at a glance, and delegate and prioritize tasks amongst your lab employees. OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook will give you access to strategic advantages, including the ability to collaborate across teams and across scientific disciplines. It will also help you to enable a compliant lab environment. And one of the coolest features of OpenLAB ELN is the fact that you can simply drag and drop your data to upload it into OpenLAB ELN. Thank you for joining today's webinar. For more information on OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook, visit www.agilent.com or contact your local Agilent Technologies sales representative.
Great. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you all for sending in your questions. I encourage you to continue to do this throughout the presentation. If you're joining us late, you may simply ask questions by typing your query into the question box, which is located at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Our next speaker today joins us from Abbott Informatics STARLIMS. Samuel Varghese is a business development manager with Abbott Informatics. Previously, he was product manager, specialty products. Samuel has been with Abbott for nearly 11 years in various commercial and IT roles. Sam earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and a master's degree in business administration from DePaul University. Thanks for joining us today, Sam.
Good morning. Thank you, Trevor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you a little bit about STARLIMS and about our electronic lab notebook product. And I wanted to also say thank you to Lab Manager for inviting us here. So I'm just going to spend a few slides sharing about STARLIMS, about our organization, what we provide. And then I will go into our ELN product and share a little bit about what are some of the benefits that customers are able to realize by implementing an ELN. So at STARLIMS, what we do is that we provide powerful software solutions that help laboratories manage complex processes. And so if you consider a laboratory that brings in samples and needs to run it through various kinds of tests and various kinds of workflows and then record those results and report those results out, we help manage all of those complex processes within a lab. We help to ensure regulatory compliance in the lab, to promote laboratory and enterprise collaboration, to increase productivity and efficiency, and to reduce error rates within the lab. And we've been around for over 25 years within the LIMS space, and we've got a number of installations in 40-plus countries around the world, so a lot of experience in deploying LIMS, SDMS, ELN, various kinds of related technologies within different labs around the world. Now, we also have specialized products that target specific markets. So we primarily focus on the quality manufacturing market, environmental market, public health, forensics, and clinical LIS. And within each of these, we've got consultants that have built up years of domain expertise deploying LIMS and ELN and related technologies in these different industries, and we have a strong professional services team that's able to deploy and meet the needs of our customers. Our core product is the LIMS product, the Laboratory Information Management System, which is a high-performance web-based LIMS solution. And then over the years, we've added on add-on products that our customers find of value. Now, these are not standalone, but they actually augment the core LIMS product. So our SDMS product, our Scientific Data Management System, allows our customers to import data in from various kinds of instruments and file-based formats without having to manually type those in. Our ELN product, our Electronic Lab Notebook, is a centralized laboratory notebook to manage both structured and unstructured data. We offer a cloud-based solution which allows us to host the LIMS in the cloud for the customer, and the customer doesn't have to worry about managing infrastructure or updates and those kinds of things. And we also have introduced last year a couple of new products, Mobility and Advanced Analytics. Mobility is our offering for enabling the Laboratory Information Management System to be accessed on the go from a tablet device such as an iPad or a smartphone such as the iPhone or an Android device. And then finally, our Advanced Analytics product allows our customers to be able to analyze the large amounts of data that's flowing through a LIMS and be able to draw new insights into how a business operates, whether it be where are bottlenecks in my lab, to how long does it take me to process samples through my lab, or turnaround time issues, or different kinds of questions that may pop up related to how do I improve my lab operations. All of these things can be helped to analyze and understand through advanced analytics. So now let's focus in and talk about just the Electronic Lab Notebook and what are some of the benefits that our customers are able to realize, are able to look for in an ELN solution. Now, our ELN solution is primarily targeted at a QA/QC market, and we're also now moving into the clinical space as well. There's many different kinds of ELNs out there and many different types of markets that they're targeted at. We focus primarily on the QA/QC market, but there are certainly elements from this that you might find useful for your particular industry that you're in. Now, different roles in a lab will look for different things in an ELN. So a lab manager might just be asking, what's an ELN and how will it help me be more productive? A QA compliance manager is concerned about regulatory guidelines. Will an ELN help me to meet the regulatory guidelines for the particular market or industry that I'm in? A lab analyst or a scientist might be concerned about, will it help me to reduce or eliminate the paperwork I have to do? And will it help me to better organize the data that I have? And so different roles are looking for different things in an ELN. And we find that these different needs are rolling up into three main areas. The first is, will an ELN help me to ensure compliance in my lab? The second area is really in the area of increasing efficiency. Will an ELN help me to increase efficiency in my lab? And then the third area is, will an ELN help me to reduce error rates that come up within my lab and the operations of my lab? So let's take a look at each of these a little bit more in depth. The first main area that an ELN helps a lab, the first key benefit, is really in the area of ensuring compliance. And this is done by reducing the use of these point solutions and hard-to-control tools that may come up in the laboratory over the years. So over time, there's different solutions that are created to meet a need. It may be a paper notebook. It may be a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, or maybe 2 or 3 of them that are used to keep track of different data in the lab. It might be a Microsoft Access database. And the challenge is, as you build these solutions over time, the person that built it has gone down to a different role. Or it's hard to keep and maintain these different tools. And it creates a lot of these different tools, and it becomes a compliance issue because they're hard to manage, hard to maintain, hard to keep up, especially as the lab is changing. And so that's one key benefit that our customers are able to realize by implementing an ELN, is really consolidating all of these different hard-to-control tools and bringing them into a flexible canvas of an ELN, which is able to capture all this data and store it in a central repository. The next benefit that you get from using an ELN, again in the area of ensuring compliance, is to be able to access the method or the protocol or the SOP while you're performing it. So as you're working in the ELN, it's very useful to be able to pull up the SOP that goes along with whatever you're doing, whatever method you're executing. It's useful to pull that up, have that available to you so you can make sure that you are in fact following along the steps as they ought to be done. And in our particular case, what you see here is a screenshot from our ELN, and on the right side is the canvas of where you would actually enter in the data in the ELN, and on the left side you have the corresponding SOP, and as you click through the different elements of the ELN, the corresponding sections of the ELN are highlighted, so you can make sure that you're actually following along the method as it ought to be done. Now, moving on from ensuring compliance, let's talk a little bit about increasing efficiency and how an ELN can help you to increase efficiency. So an ELN has built within it, the ability to import in data from different kinds of sources. It may be files, it may be instruments, it may be different kinds of protocols. But the key benefit here is by reducing and automating data entry, you're able to improve quality and save time. When you're typing in data manually, there's always that possibility of introducing human error, and it also takes time to manually key data in. So by being able to click a button and import the data in automatically through various kinds of protocols and APIs and file formats, it really helps you to improve the quality and save time within your organization. Now, the other way that you're able to increase efficiency is really by providing you with a very flexible canvas. So an ELN is able to provide both structured and unstructured data. A database you would typically think of as structured data, where everything is kind of locked in place. The tables are locked in a particular way. You need to fill in certain kinds of data, and there's certain requirements that you would need to fill in, certain criteria and so on. But on the other hand, an ELN, in addition to being structured, also needs to be able to accommodate unstructured data, which is what you would get if you had a paper notebook. It may be the need to create a calculation on the fly, do a calculation on the fly, maybe create a table, maybe import in a chart, build a chart, import in a picture, annotate that picture, build some graphs. All of these things are ad hoc type work that you would need to be able to do. And so an ELN is able to do both of these. It's able to accommodate the structured data when you need the structured data, and at the same time it can give you a flexible canvas so that you're able to do those ad hoc type things like import in a picture, create a table, do a calculation. And all of these things then become stored in the central electronic repository so that if you ever need to retrieve it later, you're able to do that very easily. Now let's move on to reducing error rates. So an ELN is able to reduce error rates by introducing certain features, and some of these things are things you're familiar with from Microsoft Excel or other tools, but certainly just basic things like fill down features, copying and pasting data, auto-populating data to read it from various kinds of instruments. So all of these things, what it's doing is reducing the introduction of any kind of error into the process. By implementing these kinds of features within the ELN, you're able to leverage this and avoid typing and calculation errors and be able to realize any of those things up front rather than introducing a mistake into your process. So really these are features that are geared towards reducing the error rates. Now, along with this, you can also detect any potential problems in your process early on. So as you're executing a particular test method, there's different criteria that you can put in place in each screen. So you might have certain acceptance criteria. You might have suitability calculations. You might even prompt the technician or the analyst to redo or retest a particular sample. All of these things you can tailor and make it tailor to your particular organization and what are the criteria that you need on each particular form, on each particular screen, to make sure that you're able to detect any potential problems early on. And along with this, there's also checks that are built in to each step. As you're moving through the method, as you're moving through the workflow and going from step to step, there's a validation that happens at each step. And you're able to ensure that any potential problems are identified early on, that they are corrected or correctable, and before they move all the way to the end. So this is another powerful feature of an ELN, is to be able to check each step of that workflow and make sure that it does meet the criteria before you move forward. And then let's now just spend a few minutes talking about some other considerations that you might want to think about. One key benefit, as I had mentioned earlier, we offer certain different modules to our customers, the LIMS plus the ELN plus the STMS. And the reason that we find that it's useful to do that is because it's very expensive to have to purchase a module from different companies and try to integrate all the pieces together. Integration costs can really add up. And so it's very useful to buy the technology from the same vendors. And this is a suggestion I have too. If you do have an existing LIMS or a software solution, it's something to think about whether that company that you're purchasing from already provides an ELN or any of these other packages that you might find useful. And it's beneficial from the perspective of having lower integration costs. The other consideration to think about is whether there are any predefined templates. So just like with Microsoft Office products such as Word and Excel, which come with predefined templates, there are other kinds of ELN templates that are available out of the box that are beneficial to have out of the box, and you don't have to recreate them, and you can just use one of the pre-existing templates for your particular ELN needs. The other thing to consider about the experience of the professional services team, do they have experience deploying ELNs and working on ELNs in the industry that you're in? Have they done tests that you run in your lab? Have they done those for other customers before? And it really just helps from streamlining the implementation, from getting you up and running more quickly. The other thing to consider as well is how flexible is the solution to meet your needs. So certainly, there's some things that you might be doing in your lab that can be improved, some processes that can be improved by aligning more in line with industry standards. So there's certainly some change that you would need to make from your end that would just bring your lab into more of a standard for the industry. But at the same time, there are things that make your lab unique. There are processes, there are ways that you do things that are unique to your lab. And so the ELN needs to be flexible enough to meet your needs. It needs to be able to accommodate the way that you run your business. So you want to look for something that's flexible enough and configurable enough to meet your needs. And then the final element is the search and retrieval capabilities. So the key benefit of having a central ELN is not only to store the data there, but also the ability to be able to retrieve it later if you ever need to go back and check something that was done in the past. So certainly you want to check and see and make sure that ELN has powerful search and retrieve capabilities that are able to meet your needs of your particular organization. So thank you very much for your time. If you ever have any questions or would like to learn more about STARLIMS as well as our products, LIMS, STMS, ELN, any of the other ones that I've mentioned, please feel free to reach out. I've got the email address there, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sam. And just a reminder that this webinar video will be available early next week on Lab Manager's website. If you'd like a copy of the presenter's slides, we suggest you reach out to them individually via email. Their contact information will be available at the end of the presentations. Our final speaker of the day is John Conway. John is Global Director of Scientific Informatics and R&D Strategy at LabAnswer. Previously, John was with Schrodinger, where he was Vice President of Scientific Informatics and Professional Service. And prior to that, he was with Accelerus, where he was Global Director of Scientific Informatics and Solutions. John has also held various research and informatics roles at Discovery Informatics, GSK, and Merck. John's early career included serving as an analytical biochemist, forensic scientist, and co-founder of Avicon, a diverse diagnostics company. Thank you for joining us today, John.
Thank you, Trevor, and thanks to Sam and Gloria for giving informative talks. I'll go through what LabAnswer does first. And okay, so LabAnswer was founded in 1990. We did our first lab informatics project in 1993. One of the key things that we can stress about LabAnswer is that we are vendor and technology agnostic. We work with all the vendors out in the marketplace. We work primarily in LIMS, LES, ELN, CDS, and STMS systems, and we're actually doing a lot of work in the R&D environment, and that's where my new role comes in. We have over 185 full-time employees. We're one of the largest lab informatics consultancies in North America, and we also support a wide range of industries and labs in the pharmaceutical, life science, and material science space, as well as the government and clinical research sectors. So today's agenda, I'm just going to go through 15 years of lessons learned, helping you prepare to do your due diligence when you're selecting an ELN, the pros and cons of an ELN, and then some extra information on preparing you for the data lake approach and not the pond. So there's a lot of complexity out in the marketplace right now. What as a customer should I be doing? What should we be deploying or implementing to help our researchers or our clinicians or our manufacturing technicians to do a better job? The key thing for anybody is to focus on your functional requirements, your functional spec, your functional design requirements. Good requirements will give you a good fit. If you keep the future in mind, it'll give you your best fit. There are several, like the other speakers have already said, there are several different areas where ELNs fit in. That's research, quality, analytical, manufacturing, and rarely does one ELN span the continuum. There's usually multiple ELNs involved. Make sure that you have your best business practices in place. You're going to have cultural issues, people and data process issues, technology change. These are all risky ventures if they're not in place before you deploy a large application like an ELN. COTS functionality is very important, so when you're evaluating, make sure that you try to use as much out-of-the-box functionality. There's a great chance that it was already built for one of your competitors or somebody else in your space, and it's already been worked through and debugged. Another key point is to harmonize before you implement, whether it's taxonomies, ontologies, manual business processes. As you saw in some of the other talks, there's a lot of automation that's going to take place, but that's a change for the end users and for people that were used to doing things a certain way. So you got to make sure that if you have manual business processes, you can send that into an automated business process. There are different informatics systems to take into account here, and this is where we come in and really help our customers. You have laboratory information management systems, you have research ELNs, you have the analytical ELNs, and you have SDMSs. They have different focuses, they have different business drivers. Their design approach is different, their data approach is different. How they capture things is different, and their integration approaches are different. This is where we can really come in and help you make sure that you're going to find the best fit and that matches your requirements and what you need to move forward with. Some more lessons learned are move slow in the beginning in order to manage the change in the complexity. You want to, if you're in a paper notebook situation today, there's a really good chance you just want to take that paper notebook and put it in an electronic format, so like paper on glass. You want to phase your deployments. You want to maximize your adoption. So you want to pick the right teams that are going to allow you to build momentum as you deploy out to other groups, whether within the same facility, with other facilities, or even around the world. We get involved with deployments that can be up to 50 sites around the world. So these are big changes. You also want to prove the value as you're doing this, because if it's being imposed on a group, or if they're being asked to adopt something, if they don't see the value in what they're doing, it's going to be a very hard sell. ELNs are very sticky. They're even more complex than databases sometimes. So you want to really think this through and before it becomes the core of your laboratory informatics platform. And my advice and LabAnswer's advice is you want to prototype as much as possible. If they do become the cornerstone of your informatics infrastructure, which they have in many areas, you want to think ahead how your data is going to be used in the future. Some of the biggest ideas or things that are going on right now in the research space is ideation, capturing those ideas, the hypothesis, the rationale. Why did we even start this? Why is this a good idea? How did this all start? Experimental design, designing experiments to prove a point or to prove your hypothesis. And a real key one is tracking failure and success. And in many areas in research, success comes after a lot of failure. So figuring out in the future how you can reduce failure wherever possible and get to your successes faster is critical. There's some other critical pieces that occur in the laboratory. There's workflows that you need to take into account, whether you're in the research, the analytical, the manufacturing space, the quality control. There's all different types of workflows that have to be brought into account and how you have to match those up. There's also a lot of workflow that goes on and data flow. And there's technologies out there like Pipeline Pilot and NIME and TIBCO and other things that come into play that need to be considered. So as you start your due diligence, there's a list of critical considerations, and some of the other speakers have brought some of these up. But system and architectural integration is crucial. Ease of use, whether it's from an end user or an administrator, out-of-the-box configuration versus customization wherever possible is very, very important. The instrument and application integration lists, you want to see what these lists are when you're looking at a notebook in your due diligence phase. You want to see what those out-of-box lists are and how they're being maintained and supported. You want to figure out what the support and maintenance is around the ELN. What is it going to take to keep this up 24/7, 365? What are the upgrade processes like? What are the migrations like? Things like that. Searchability has been brought up. Is critical. It's crucial. Many times customers will implement a solution and hoping in 6 months that they can get out what they put in, and it becomes a major issue. So these are the types of due diligence practices that you have to walk through, and prototyping, again, will help you discern that. Know where your data is going, how it's being structured, and what's the ultimate migration plan. And there's multiple migration plans here. The migration plans of data in, but eventually, say 5-10 years down the road, you decide that you want to move to a different platform. What is the level of effort to migrate that data? This is critical. This is holding a lot of companies back today from actually migrating from one ELN offering to another, because the plan is broken and the data is very difficult to get your arms around and migrate. So it's definitely an issue. Collaboration, you've heard before, is critical, especially if you're a company that's working with academics or CROs or just people within your own organization. You want to have an environment where you can collaborate with. Your overall vendor score, your services group, the quality, look at the code base. I can't stress that enough. Look behind the scenes and make sure that you're getting something that hasn't been built layer on layer on layer, but there's quality to the code base. And the technology, match your technology to where you're at today and where you want to be in the future, because all these things are impingements and can really hurt you down the road. And that's the future-proofing of all this. Figure out how to future-proof as much as possible. Now, this doesn't apply to probably everybody on the phone. There may be academics on the phone or folks that have a very small group, and they just need to start capturing the data. And there's ways to do that. But this is for the medium-sized companies on up, or the smaller companies that are doing really well and know that they're going to be somewhere in the next couple of years. References are key. If you can only get one reference about a particular vendor, or maybe two, it would be suspect that you're not getting multiple references. So let's go over some pros and cons. Some of the pros of an ELN, or you're going to start to get more organized, so your organization is going to go up. Your efficiency gains should go up, and now you're in the electronic archival versus paper archival. Traceability, the data, the processes, the people, things become more traceable, and this is a huge time saver. You're starting to become an overall electronic laboratory environment, which will enable future processes and integrations that will, again, lower your barrier to getting some things done slower. The key part, I think, to this, too, is that you're starting to become part of a shareable information and data foundation. And this is with the particular folks that gave their talks before, the companies that they work for, and many others. All these build into that information and data foundation, which is critical for the future analytics. So some of the cons, vendor dependency with some technology mismatching is a possible one. Functional scope creep or solution bloat, in other words, trying to do everything in an ELN, right, where it may not be the best thing to do or best place to put things or do things or have particular processes. Again, it's a very sticky solution, so you really want to be confident that you've done your due diligence and you've implemented something that's going to be around for a while and is going to really help the organization. Your support and maintenance could be overwhelming, so upgrades, data loss, whatever it may be. These are things that you have to watch out for. It could become a potential data silo where you can get data in, but you have a hard time getting it out. And again, these can be handled in the due diligence phase. And then IP protection. I think everyone on the call either knows or has heard the stories that the original ELNs are really designed for a lot of IP protection. But with the first-to-file laws now, the patent laws that have changed, this is still true, but it may not be the driver for ELN implementation in many organizations today. So this goes back to that data foundation. So when you have your data in context, you have information. When you have your information plus insight, you have knowledge. And once you have your knowledge and you have foresight and intuition, it becomes intelligence. And this is when you start to make better decisions. And the ELN and its environment can help drive that. And this is a really critical extra that you would get with something like an ELN, because it goes back to the ideation, capturing all that data, figuring out what's working and not working, and being able to apply those lessons learned to your next project or your next process or your next product that's going through a particular set of processes. So the overview is, and you heard this earlier, is that there's research ELNs, there's laboratory execution systems, and there's LIMS systems. And in the research space, there's a lot of chemistry, biology, materials, where that's the main purpose is to capture the IP, to capture the ideation, to be able to reuse knowledge, to bring in reaction databases or the chemistry or the biology and increase efficiency and that operational excellence. In the laboratory execution space, you're doing a lot of analytical testing. You've got a lot of SOPs that are in electronic format. There's a lot of compliance. You're trying to reduce errors. You're trying to just repeat different processes in a very accurate way. So there's big differences here. And then with the LIMS, these are a lot of sample tracking. It holds a lot of different information around samples, the compliance around that, and things like that. So again, it's just really critical, and I put these in here for everyone to see so that you could go back and really start to look at what is it that you really need. Is it an ELN, or is it a different part of this, or do I have everything else? and now I need to figure out which ELN to bring in along with what I already have. So in conclusion, industrialized research and development organizations need very specialized ELNs and a plethora of supporting applications around them. And this is critical from an integration perspective to try to keep things as smooth as possible. Task or method-driven areas of research may not need that traditional ELN, but maybe a laboratory design and execution solution that captures information and data. So keep that in mind. And you may have a vendor that has, like you saw earlier, all the different pieces, and now they have a very generic ELN that they have already integrated with that, and it dovetails right into to the rest of your environment. And that sounds like a nice solution. But when you're doing this, keep the big picture in mind. It's really important. So it's first to file now. It's not first to invent. So, I would put that in your planning. Knowledge management and analytics, being able to pull that data and information out of your tool to make higher order decisions is really crucial. Think about it. Are you going to be involved or are you involved in a distributed research or service model where you're working with CROs and organizations all around the world? Because that is critical as well. And this last one, request management, is critical. You need to make sure that your request management is either in check with outside the ELN, or that the ELN that you're bringing in handles request management very well. I've been involved in numerous projects over the year where request management was not optimal, and it really affected the overall functionality of the application. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, John. We've had a number of questions come in from our audience, so I think we'll move straight into our question and answer session. The first question that we have is, could we more clearly define the difference between an ELN and a LIMS? And maybe, Gloria, could I start you off with that?
Certainly. In the interest of keeping it short, I think the key difference is that with ELN, you're not just managing structured data, you've got the unstructured component to it. So you've got the ability to write free-form text alongside your structured database-like information.
Great, thank you. Sam or John, any additions to that?
This is Sam.
This is John. I think LIMS systems are very attuned to analytical support and method development labs, whether it's preclinical or clinical bioanalytical labs. A lot of times it's method driven, but a big part of it as well is the tracking of not just the samples, but the data behind the samples and the metadata associated with those. But Gloria's right about the structured versus unstructured as well.
Sam?
Yeah, and so I would say that, with our customers, the LIMS, you've got the whole process that you're passing through the lab. You're logging the test samples in, you're running the tests, you're recording the results, you're reporting the results out. But as you go through that process, there's also interim data that you would typically capture in a paper notebook, or you may generate some Excel spreadsheets or whatever it is. So that interim data that you would normally have in a different tool is what would be captured within the ELN. So it would be both structured data, which would be more complex calculations, more complex workflows that need to be put in outside the LIMS, as well as freeform, where you would bring in a picture off of a microscope and annotate it, or maybe create a chart or a specific table on the fly. So those are additional things that you don't have in the core LIMS process, but you still want to be able to capture in an electronic format and make it available as part of the permanent record.
Great, thank you. Going forward, do you see a convergence in ELN and LIMS technology, or are these going to stay as, distinct entities?
This is Gloria Oliver from Agilent. I think absolutely. We're already seeing a convergence of the two. A lot of structured-based LIMS systems are starting to bleed over into the world of ELN and vice versa. I think this is really driven by what our customers need. They need a little bit of both.
Excellent. John or Sam, any other additions to that?
Yeah, so with us, this is Sam, with us, our core started at the LIMS, and then over the time we added in the ELN because we really saw a need for that for our customers. We wanted to provide that as something that's pre-integrated out of the box. So in our world, it's already available. It may be a separate module, but a lot of our customers will choose to go ahead and add the ELN, and we will just do it as part of that project. But it's fully integrated in, so you can't really even tell that you're in a separate application because it's all part of the same interface into our STARLIMS solution. So it's already part of the core.
Great, thank you. John, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it is converging, and I think there will be some technologies that do it really well and others that may not. So I think, again, the due diligence around assessing how well it's done and how well it was written to do that is critical.
Great, thank you. How has the FDA responded to the use of ELNs in general, and what are the specific challenges of validating the use of ELNs? Gloria, maybe I can start you off with that.
Sure. I think from an FDA's point of view, it's an exciting advancement in technology that's making regulatory type processes much more streamlined and efficient. In particular, the enforcement of electronic signatures is basically right there built into the product. It becomes something that you don't even have to think of anymore or worry about because it's just built in to OpenLAB Electronic Lab Notebook. So I think from a regulatory point of view, this is absolutely a boost in efficiency and something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future.
Okay, thank you. Sam or John?
Yeah, I know from Lab Answers' perspective, we're involved in dozens of compliance and regulatory validations around LIMS, ELNs, and LISs. So from our vantage point, it all seems a big green go. I don't see anything holding that back.
Yeah, and this is Sam. Certainly, our tool set is set up, our product is set up to have 21 CFR Part 11 compatibility, traceability, the ability to be able to prepare for audits and have all of that data available. And certainly from an FDA standpoint, the FDA testing lab actually uses STARLIMS LIMS software, so it's certainly something that they've embraced as well for their own testing lab. So I think it's something they're receiving.
Great, thank you. Now, can ELNs typically only be used with LIMS software from the same companies, or are they able to integrate with other systems easily? Sam, maybe I'll start you off with that.
Yeah, so certainly I know there are ELNs that are standalone and have been built to integrate with other LIMS. Our particular product is specific to our LIMS. We don't sell our ELN as a standalone product, so it's only if you buy the STARLIMS, the LIMS portion, then it would be an add-on to the LIMS. So we don't make it available as a separate application. But I know that there are other companies that do make ELN as a standalone product.
Okay, thank you. Gloria, anything to add there?
Yeah, so I think one of the cool things about OpenLAB portfolio of informatics products is that they're meant to work hand in hand with each other. We've got the electronic content management. We have data systems driving your chromatography and mass spec instruments. And we also have a professional services organization, which is really set up to help you implement not only our tools, but also your third-party software and other external applications that you want to connect into your OpenLAB electronic lab notebook. So we're very experienced in handling those third-party issues that can come up on a case-by-case basis. We integrate with corporate databases, molecule repositories, all kinds of things that you find often in the big pharma lab environments. And one thing that I wanted to mention or add to the point about FDA compliance is that I think the versioning control that you have within OpenLAB electronic lab notebook is a really unique feature and something that's just come about recently. The fact that you can now trace what changes were made to an SOP and see who made those changes, the date and timestamp of those changes, and similarly with your admin and user operations. You can really start to have more accountability and tracking within your organization, and that's really powerful for regulatory environments.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is John. I think it's important to say that there are some best-in-breed, what are considered best-in-breed LES systems and things out there that necessarily don't integrate out of the box with different environments, and this is where LabAnswer does get involved and helps configure those and integrate those for many of our customers. So we do those integrations where they're not necessarily out of the box integratable.
Thank you. John, you mentioned that getting buy-in from employees was important when you're implementing an ELN system. What advice can you give for getting the team on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has seen the adoption curve that's out there. You really have to select your technologists. You have to select people that are excited about the change that's coming, and they can see, what the future could bring. You have to get them on board early, and you have to be able to, I stress, you have to be able to show the value. And it's not going to impinge their work. If they have to do all these extra steps throughout the day to synthesize their molecule or complete their particular job and stuff, and there's no benefit to them, it's not going to be deemed a success. So you do have to get them on early. You have to get the right people, the right attitudes, and then foster that through so that you build the momentum to drive the project to completion.
Thank you. Gloria or Sam, any additions to that?
This is Gloria. Not too much to add. I think John really hit the nail on the head. One thing that I would mention is just how delightful is the user experience? How easy is it for users to actually use the electronic lab notebook in their day-to-day activities? So this gets into how do they upload data? Can they drag and drop? Do they have to click through a bunch of menu options? Does it look and feel like what they're used to in the paper notebook? Does it allow them to take what's in their head and transfer it into the electronic format very seamlessly and naturally in a natural human way? So I think this kind of speaks to the user experience and how the software product is designed to fit with the way the users think and operate on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Gloria. Sam, any additions?
Yeah, and Trevor, I would just say I think it's just important to stress the value that it would bring to the user, how it would improve their day, and help them to see in terms of how it would actually impact their workflow and make things more efficient for them. And really kind of try to identify what it is that would be of value to each person. It may be that one person's value, what they're finding valuable in the ELN is different from the other person, right? So kind of finding out for each role what would be beneficial for them, and then helping them to see that from their perspective, that it's either, one, going to help speed up the work that they do, two, somehow improve some other operation that they're doing, and really help them to see that value that it would bring. Because these tools, they're not just introducing change, but they actually do streamline things and automate certain functions and help people in the work that they do as well.
Great, thank you. What type of hardware is required in setting up an ELN, and what kind of data volume is generated? And how does this volume impact the performance of an ELN?
This is Gloria again. I would say that the data volume is minimal with OpenLAB ELN. There's no impact on performance whatsoever. And in terms of hardware, we run on an Oracle server. So that's the one piece that you would need to set up. It's part of the package, and our sales representatives work very closely, as well as our professional services team members, to help get that whole system put into place very quickly and efficiently.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, so for our ELN, so it's again, built on the STARLIMS LIMS platform, and the ELN is an add-in. And what would happen is it would run on an either a SQL Server or an Oracle database with a Windows server backend, and then it's just scalable depending on the volume of tests, the samples going through a particular lab. It would scale up accordingly. If it's a smaller lab, you would need smaller data requirements. If it's a larger lab having thousands and thousands of samples going through, you would need a larger amount of data. But certainly if the lab isn't interested in necessarily investing in that themselves and buying all the infrastructure and setting that up, we do make available from STARLIMS a cloud platform, so it's a monthly subscription rate, and you would just purchase that, and we would handle all of the infrastructure and taking care of all the updates and things like that. So that's something we make available to our customers as well.
Great, thank you, Sam. Now, can ELNs be used to generate reports? Gloria, maybe I'll ask that one of you.
Sure. So with the way it works in OpenLAB ELN is you can generate a report off of any page in the notebook. This is typically done in PDF format because that's the most convenient document to pass and exchange with other people. But we also just allow you to take reports off of your chromatography data system or whatever other software applications that you already are using in the lab. You can easily just import those reports into a page of your ELN. So it depends on what kind of report you're looking for, but it's just a click of a button within OpenLAB ELN to generate a report out of the software.
Great, thank you. Sam, anything to add for your platform?
Yes, absolutely. So our ELN is stored in an XML format within the database, and certainly anything that you would need to pull out of there into a report can be made available in, we have available either Crystal reports to generate those reports, or we also have our new platform, which is called Advanced Analytics, and really allows you to build dashboards and very interactive visualizations that you can drill down through and analyze your data however you'd like. So we do make available both of them.
Great, thank you. How about capturing photos and that sort of thing? Are ELNs capable of doing that?
This is Sam. So certainly you're able to import in any kind of if you have a picture, if you have some kind of file you'd like to make as part of the record. Maybe it's something that came off of a microscope. You can certainly bring that into the ELN and then annotate it if you want and make that available as part of the record.
Great, thank you. Gloria?
I would echo Sam's response. We have the exact same features within OpenLAB ELN, and we're working on getting support for mobile devices. That's coming out very soon as an accessory to our desktop client so that we can get users out in the field able to capture observations quickly and efficiently. So that's the direction that we're moving in with OpenLAB ELN. Great,
thank you. John, you showed a table that said that LIMS were highly structured and ELNs were free-form. However, an analytical ELN is highly structured. Why is that?
Because it's a very method-driven environment. So, it's one step, collect results, move on, get the okay to move to the next step. So it's an electronic SOP where you walk through the different phases or the different steps of that particular method. And then there's particular sign-offs needed, certificates formed, whatever the SOP dictates, that's what the template follows. In a research space, it can be a little more free-thinking and open. You could have a hypothesis, but then you can go off and explore several different scenarios, record that all in your notebook, and then get your notebook signed and countersigned.
Great, thank you. Yep. If you're looking at changing or scaling up your informatics structure, how difficult is it to migrate data from one system to another?
This is John. I'll take that one first. It can be very difficult. It depends on the age of your original notebook, the structure of the database or the vault or whatever it's called that stores the data, how well that was put together and how much forethought was put into that. There's all different types of different file formats that are brought in there. I think the question was asked around, pictures being brought in and different things like that. All that structure comes into play when it's time to migrate that out in a particular record. Some notebooks were project-centric, some were experiment-centric, some are sample-centric. So it's just it's a what-if until you actually get in and look at everything and assess the situation.
Thank you. Gloria or Sam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. This is Sam. Certainly, I agree. I think it's also a question and decision that you have to make on whether you do want to migrate all that old data over to the new platform, or do you want to make it just available as something that you have as a backup if you ever need to go back and refer to it, maybe just a few user licenses and it's just sitting there and it's not updated, but then you sort of have a hard stop and you're starting with all the new platforms. So it's a decision you want to make. How much of the old data do you want to actually bring over? And certainly there's some certain amount of complexity involved in translating the old data structure over to the new, but it's a decision that you have to make as you're moving into the implementation of the project.
Thank you. Gloria, anything to add?
Well, I would just echo the previous commentators saying that it really depends on each customer's situation, and this is where our professional services team really comes into play because they have a lot of experience with assessing the customer's needs and helping them get from point A to point B. We also have the power of some advanced scripting capabilities within OpenLAB ELN because of the way it's architectured. Either the user themselves or our professional services experts can help generate some custom scripts that then allow you to automatically migrate your data over from one system to another. So it really depends on each customer's unique situation, but we have a team in place that's ready to help you make the transition.
Great, thank you. Now, for data that has a finite retention time, is it possible to purge the old data from the system, and can that be automated? Gloria, maybe I'll start you with that.
Well, most of our customers are excited about OpenLAB ELN from the standpoint that it's a secure repository, meaning that the information that you store in your ELN is not deletable or corruptible. It's there and it's secure. There are some cases where customers have asked to delete portions of the notebook after a certain time period, and that is something that we can work with them to implement, but it's not something that we have just out of the box because it would sort of conflict with some of our compliance functionality. So it is there within the system. It's not something that's easily accessible because we want to prevent users from accidentally deleting or destroying data, but it is a possibility if you need it.
Thank you. Sam, anything to add there?
Yeah, and certainly we have record retention, accommodating the record retention capabilities of an organization. The platform is flexible enough that you can, if needed, implement those rules if that's needed for your organization, or lock it down so that it's secure and it can't be changed, in the future. So it just really depends on the needs of the organization, and certainly our professional services teams are able to implement it to meet the requirements of the customer. And then we also have training classes available if the customer should choose to do it themselves. We can certainly train them on how to do that. So either option's available.
Great, thank you. Now, how frequently should a lab be reviewing their informatics solutions? What would be your recommendation? John, maybe I'll start you with that.
That's a great question. Continually. I think you've got to align your internal objectives. And so, for instance, right now, big data has gotten a lot of press, right? And the problem is a lot of customers weren't ready to make big data and the analytics work with all the data repositories and solutions and applications that they have. So trying to continually be ahead of the curve or stay ahead of the trends and things like that is a huge challenge, especially around the budgetary constraints and things like that. But I think that organizations need to really stay on top of what they're doing and how they're doing it to maximize their efficiencies and their future analytical capabilities.
Great, thank you. Any additions to that?
Yeah,
this is Gloria. Oh.
Go ahead.
You go ahead, Sam.
Okay, so I was going to say, it's certainly, I think it is certainly important to keep on top of this continually, and also when you're picking the vendor for your solution to find a vendor that is keeping on top of the latest in technology as well, right? So there, not only do you don't have to change to another vendor, but you're able to keep up to date with the vendor's own solution. So as an example, with my company, we try to provide our customers, not only a stable platform, but also we make available to them the latest technology platforms so that if they wanted to, they can move to that. This includes mobility with our iPad and iPhone, Android offerings. If the customer would like to start exploring those things, if that would add value to the customer, we certainly make those available to them, and we've already launched platforms for that. And big data, our advanced analytics add-on module is geared towards that. And so certainly our customers are able to leverage that and still stay with the investment that they've already made. So we're that's something to consider as well. The innovation of the company that you're partnering with, do they keep up to date with the latest technology? Do they make that available to you if you needed to move down that route?
Thank you. Gloria?
I'm glad that Sam raised that point. That is exactly what I wanted to mention, is that the customer should factor that into their consideration when they're looking at different vendors. It's obviously a huge challenge. We live in a really exciting time with the advancement of technology. It's hard for any company to keep up with the pace, but I think that's where the choice of vendor comes into play. You really want to look at the company's track record and the resources behind that company to stay on top of the latest trends, so that, as Sam mentioned, you don't need to migrate off of your current system, but simply just upgrade to the latest version.
Great, thank you. John, could you just give a simple explanation of some of the issues surrounding request management?
Yeah, so I appreciate this question. So request management typically in the life sciences space has consisted of numerous applications for requesting materials, particular assays, people's time. And what has happened over the years is that there's all these ways of requesting this, but it was never very tracked very well, and the systems were, have grown old and things like that. If you're going to deploy a centralized ELN or other application that is involving people, data, and processes, you need to make sure that it has or can work with a solid request management system. This really, in the distributed research world that's happening today, this is critical because you're going out across, say, 5 or 7 CROs and trying to find out who's got the best prices, who could do the work the quickest, when will they return the results, or do they have a dashboard or whatever it is to return the results. All this can be managed through request management systems, and it just drives efficiency even more and more. So if you have one that's only built for within your firewall, and all of a sudden you've gone to a distributed research model, and this has really happened over the past couple of years to a lot of major pharmas, they've had to rewrite all their systems, and it's been a huge impact to them. And so this is a lesson learned to tell everyone else out there. Make sure you've got your request management in line so that you can seamlessly request materials, request assays, or experiments to be done, and get the data back seamlessly.
Great, thank you. Now, how do you evaluate a prototype or a real use scenario prior to choosing an ELN or LIMS vendor?
So prototyping is critical. So, a lot of vendors will come in, they'll do their pre-sales work, they'll say, this does this does that and that. But until you actually get it in your environment and you're seeing it real time and you're highlighting major requirements or major issues that are very important to the success of that ELN, you really may not know what the outcome may be. So it's good to bring in multiple vendors, run through those requirements, make sure the performance is there, make sure that the searchability is there. You're really trying to stress the system sometimes, because once it's in-house and behind your firewall and you're using it, you really don't want to be surprised by, I thought this all was supposed to work, but it doesn't work, right? You really want to try to vet that out before, you purchase the product and it's implemented.
Great, thank you. Gloria or Sam, anything to add to that?
I absolutely agree with the idea of taking it for a test drive. I think that's really where you're going to see the differences between different vendors. So I think the opportunity to try it out in your laboratory for a month or two, however long it takes for you to evaluate the functionality and get a sense for what it's going to be like using the product on a daily basis. Does it meet all of your requirements? Were there things that you didn't anticipate needing to do, but now that you have it in place, you recognize a new need has arisen? So I think the test driving or the piloting phase is absolutely an important part of the process. And I think another good way of vetting an ELN before you buy is to ask for customer testimonials. Who else is using the system, and how have they tailored it to their laboratory's needs? Maybe there's a lab that is already using the product that is very similar to yours, and so you can work with the salesperson to try to understand what other customer reactions have been to the product.
Great, thanks. Sam, any last words there?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I would also maybe suggest, once you've decided on a vendor, it's something that we do is a cloud platform. Now it's not really a trial, but if you wanted to try out, if you wanted to, if you had decided on it and wanted to try it in a cloud platform before you actually buy the infrastructure and get things set up and make sure that you've got everything working right before you make the investment in buying your own infrastructure, that's something to consider as well, the cloud platform.
Great, thank you. That's great advice. Well, I'd like to thank you all for a great discussion, and this brings us to the end of today's webinar. If you have any further questions, please consider reaching out to the panelists directly, as they are the true experts in this field. Their contact information, as you can see, is available on the screen now. Just a reminder that today's webinar video will be available at the link you see on the screen. On behalf of Lab Manager, I'd like to thank our panelists today for all their hard work. And I'd like to thank our sponsors, Agilent Technologies, Abbott Informatics, STARLIMS, and LabAnswer Scientific Solutions for supporting our Tech Trends webinar series. As well, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. You may wish to join us next week when our Management Matters webinar will focus on using skills analysis to create strong, versatile teams. This webinar will be taking place Wednesday, July 23rd from 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. For more information, please visit our website at www.labmanager.com. We hope you can join us again next time. Thank you and have a great day.